The following is a conversation with Thomas Butler. Tom is a student of mathematics at Occidental College. He also won a big filmmaking competition in high school that he was a producer of. Tom was also my roommate in our junior year of college, and we were young entrepreneurs hosting many of the pre-games before essentially all the parties on the weekends. Please enjoy this conversation with Tom Butler. Tom, welcome to Geigernomics.
Thank you, bro. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be the first live guest
Absolutely.
in the Geigernomics studio.
Yeah, this is a legendary moment.
Mm-hmm.
For people who don't know, we studied, had a couple courses together at Oxy.
That's right.
One of them was statistics.
Yep.
And I think we had a pretty incredible stats project together.
Mm-hmm.
For people who don't know, our stats project was discovering the percentage of daily smokers and or near daily smokers of the student population at Occidental compared to the national average.
Mm-hmm.
Astoundingly, we had about 10% higher than the national average. I think we had 18% of Oxy students being
something like that.
Daily to near daily
Mm-hmm.
smokers, and the national average was like 8%.
Fully anonymous survey. This was all conducted by standards, and we found that Occidental College had a significantly higher percentage of daily smokers.
And I mean, if you look at it, we're in Los Angeles, small liberal arts college. Obama went there. People are just ready to smoke weed.
It's part of the daily lifestyle, honestly, for a lot of people.
It is. So, I want to talk to you today because I really think that with Bitcoin being a up-and-coming potential worldwide currency, where I'm coming from is, I've been influenced by this book, The Bitcoin Standard, but being a student of economics and a student of philosophy, that's my perspective on Bitcoin. And you're a student of mathematics, and you study computer science, and you come to the conclusion that Bitcoin can be a potential successful currency from that perspective. And I really want to learn more about that. And I think where we could start this is with discussing what is a Bitcoin. From my understanding, it's part of the blockchain technology, and it's a software protocol. And I think it's an invention in a way. But what is your perspective on Bitcoin and what it is?
So Bitcoin right now is a token on a system that is associated with our personal accounts. But our personal accounts have a highly complex identification that makes it nearly impossible to crack, and thus improves security, but also improves transfer between us because of the encryption, if that makes sense.
Kinda.
We'll get into it.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. So one thing that I find really interesting that you were explaining to me about Bitcoin is the numbers that are associated with it. Numbers aren't really my thing, which is strange to some people being an economics student. Honestly, economics is more akin to the social sciences of sociology and philosophy, geometry, not so much numbers and regression analysis, econometrics. It's not my style. But how is the coding in Bitcoin? How is that secure enough for us to use as a currency? Why can't we just print more of it or corrupt Bitcoin? What's so special about Bitcoin compared to or cryptocurrencies compared to gold and paper money?
Well, I think from your perspective, where it's what we believe it to be, but if we have faith in it, where the numbers you're talking about come in, where it's validation and mining, which I think we'll get into, or associated with our accounts, the time it would take to process and crack the codes to the key to our accounts would take way too long for any computer that we currently have to crack, and thus it improves security for us so that no one can access it.
Okay, let's just go into the computer technology because it's over my head, and we just need to go. We just need to start there.
Okay, let's start with the mining.
All right.
So mining is validating our transactions. And so the people who mine it and validate our transactions, they're given a reward for validating the system. And so that's what mining is. They're using their computing power to validate me sending this to you, and thus making the system have more faith. So someone's going to have more faith in our system because all our transactions are validated, and I can't use the same Bitcoin to buy something twice. So, for example, if I'm mining something, let's say I have a number between 1 and 100. You want to guess what it is?
69.
Sure. That's a valid guess. And so, but now think about, it's not between 1 and 100. It's between 0 and some 64-digit hexadecimal number, which is incredibly large. So all these computers at the same time are guessing what that number is. But there's so many different options. The first one to do it correctly gets that reward. And so that's why people mine and get profit from this, but also validate the system at the same time, improving the faith that people have in it. So
it's these long codes of numbers that is the mining process, discovering that long line of number. And then there's the aspect of Bitcoin that it's on a ledger of the transactions that occurs, but this ledger is not centralized, right? Each node, which is the mining computer, has a copy of the ledger, and so when someone transacts with it, it has to be verified on each node. And so I guess with Bitcoin, if you can find that 64-digit hexadecimal number, then you can theoretically take that Bitcoin.
Not exactly. So if you're guessing that this is for this is when you're encoding the Bitcoin, when you're sending it to one another, using this thing called a hashing function, which is you're taking some input and then performing a function on it and getting an output of a completely different number system. But that hashing function produces this number, that 64-digit hexadecimal, which you guess it to be, and then that is the hash of that number. And if you guess it correctly or close to it, you get the reward for guessing it correctly and adding it to the blockchain, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to follow. So with Bitcoin, can it be an exponentially long numerical code? Does it have to be 64?
That's what whoever created it, we don't know, Satoshi, created it as. Okay. That's what the output is.
Okay.
As of right now.
So for cryptocurrencies, theoretically, they could be
bigger.
Up to 1,000.
256, who knows? It could be anything.
Okay. So going back a little bit away from the computer science stuff, what brings you to the conclusion that Bitcoin could potentially be the worldwide currency?
I think it's because of the speed of transaction and identification to us as individuals versus using a bank to have faith in holding our money, which they don't even really have. They're putting it somewhere else. Versus me, I have a certain amount of Bitcoin and I want to buy 10 crates of pineapples from you. I can just send you the Bitcoin, you'll have it right away on your account. I don't have to send the money through Chase Bank to your business account in China to send me the pineapples. I can send it to you right away. No intermediaries.
There's something beautiful about that. I think this puts the power of the money back into people's hands a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how banking would work with a Bitcoin standard currency. if people would leave their Bitcoin in a bank and then the bank would issue a money substitute for the Bitcoin. But that's for another issue, conversation.
Well, I think from that, it might shift away from banks and go into a service that provides the transaction on the Bitcoins for us. So instead of us paying the banks, we're paying someone to make the transactions of Bitcoin. So we could move away from banks entirely. Our new form of banks could be people who are making the transactions of Bitcoin for us.
Okay.
Providing that infrastructure to transfer Bitcoin on.
Okay. I'm in favor of that. Okay. Cool. All right. So what do you think about this?
Mm-hmm. Well, for example, we both use Coinbase, correct?
We do.
And we tried before this podcast to send each other some Bitcoin, and we found that there was a $7 charge on our transaction. Mm-hmm. Now, if every time we send a transaction, there is a fee of that size, what's the difference between us paying a bank to hold our money versus us paying a fee to transfer our Bitcoin?
I guess just the expense of keeping it stored and then using it to transact with.
Okay.
But I think, as the author of this book, Saifedean Amos, tries to or points out, is that the fees for transacting with Bitcoin is because the processing power of transacting with Bitcoin, because it's decentralized and has to be verified on a ledger of every node, requires so much more energy that it raises the price of this verification. For example, like Bitcoin can only verify 4 transactions every second. Mm-hmm. And Visa and MasterCard, having a centralized system, can verify 2,000 transactions a second. So at this moment, Bitcoin doesn't have the capacity to verify that many transactions, which I think has something to do with the bits or something. I'm not exactly sure, but I want to really like scoop up the information inside your head about Bitcoin. What is the deal with bits and Bitcoin?
So bits is the most basic unit of computation, and it depends what kind of system we're running on. If it's binary or hexadecimal, it could be different, because that just means how many. Binary would be ones or zeros. Hexadecimal would be 0 through 9, and then A through F could be each individual unit of the code. And so this just provides our information, which we transfer to each other. And so it's built, this is like what any sort of digital technology is built on. So financial or coins is just one of them. So that's why it's called Bitcoin. Just a fun name. And I think it's stuck, and I think it's the name brand currently of all cryptocurrencies. And that's why it could be the one that remains, or one of the ones.
Well, what I'm optimistic about Bitcoin more than any other cryptocurrency is the fact that the creator, Satoshi, made it this decentralized currency where there is no... I mean, this book goes so into the specifics about how if there's like these things called forks to make alterations to the size of the coin, but it's set up where each node has to verify this, but it alters the value of the coin, and then people have to get these duplicates. I don't get it entirely. Essentially, because it's decentralized and these alterations, you need like 51% of the nodes, and there's hundreds of thousands of nodes to make these alterations. It is most likely that it won't occur. However, these other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and these other ones, they have these creators that can still allow for alterations on the coin and can create more of it, which is an inflationary process. From the Austrian perspective of economics, the definition of inflation is an increase in the money supply. Bitcoin doesn't have this. There's 21 million, I forget the exact number, of Bitcoin that is created, which means that by the year 2140, when supposedly all the Bitcoin is supposed to be mined, you'll have a deflationary process on prices. When you have more efficiency and technology that can provide goods at a cheaper cost, these lower the prices. But today what we're seeing with this fiat currency that we have, and a central bank that actually produces more money with inflation, it leads to higher prices over time. And it's fighting these deflationary forces of technology that we're creating. So this isn't really helping people. But Bitcoin has the opportunity, with a set limit of Bitcoin. I'm going to say it's 21 million, but don't quote me. I think it's 21 million. I think it's 21. And it's divisible by like the 8th decimal or something.
Could be even farther.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is right now.
Yeah. So you get to that Satoshi, and then you have this set quantity of money. And that set quantity is able to be, transferred amongst individuals, and then that's like gold. That's why people say it's like digital gold, but even gold has an inflation rate when it's mined. It increases, but not as much. It's one of the most rare precious metals. But this fiat currency is just, you can print $100 bill for like 10 cents or $1. That's all it costs. So in the long run, the fiat currencies will never prevail. But that's getting into more of the economic theory. But that's what I find so fascinating about Bitcoin, is that like it has this decentralizing effect.
Do you think we'll ever find a different cryptocurrency that uses Bitcoin as its standard to be a more common transaction? Because we don't really trade gold anymore. We trade our fiat currency. Do you think we would use Bitcoin as a digital standard and have a different coin, which we designed to be made specifically for transactions, be our transactionary currency?
Absolutely, potentially. I'm no expert in this, but I would think sure. I mean, if Bitcoin is the currency that we will use as the standard, I think it's totally conceivable that we could have like a digital currency based off Bitcoin to transact with, and then you would save your Bitcoin to transact for larger purchases or investments because of the verification fee and the mining fee. But you could have this alternative currency backed by Bitcoin to transact with, and that could be your smaller purchases, because silver used to be what people would transact with on smaller scales of transactions, and gold was used for larger scale transactions. And I think Bitcoin could replace gold.
Because you see transactions being accepted in Bitcoin now too.
You do, and there's this law in economics called Gresham's law, which is essentially that bad money drives out good money. So it's the coins that, because coins were based off weight, the ones that were chipped and weighed less than the other coin of the same metal, the full coin would be saved, and people would transact with the chipped coin because it weighed less, so it was theoretically less valuable. But by law, it was still had to be accepted in exchange, and so that's what happened there. And so what I think we're seeing today is people are buying Bitcoin. They're investing it. They know that in the long run it could be more valuable than the dollar. So people are still transacting today in dollars, knowing that maybe Bitcoin is the investment to hold on to at this moment. And so I think that could be what we're seeing, why people don't transact as much in Bitcoin at this moment. I'm not going to the convenience store and buying a tub of ice cream with my Bitcoin. I will in dollars. I'll buy most things in dollars. There's a anecdote in this book about, one of the first purchases someone bought with Bitcoin was like 2 pizzas, and he bought it for 10,000 Bitcoin. I think that's like a couple million, if not $1 billion, worth of Bitcoin right now.
I know the story.
That's unreal. And if Bitcoin keeps going up, it's at like around 50K right now.
It was like 48 last time I checked.
People are saying Bitcoin's going up to 500,000.
Why couldn't it?
Why couldn't it? Is exactly the optimistic perspective I love to hear. And that's why I think people with that optimism are wanting to save it, invest it, hold on to it, not sell it, to go back into the fiat dollar.
Well, I think you see big corporations like Tesla now. What they buy, $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin?
Yes.
That's a pretty big investment for a pretty large U.S. company.
Yes, absolutely. And there's other companies that are also investing in Bitcoin and probably under the radar too.
Absolutely. Big financial institutions, they have to be. I feel like it'd be malpractice not to at this point. At least have some stake in it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And again, being an anarchist against the state, I love to see that people can take power back in their own property and property in their money, and people can own Bitcoin. It's tough to say that you own your own dollars at this point when the government can create more of it and devalue what you own. And I really believe that the more companies get involved in investing in Bitcoin and making it acceptable to sell and trade and in Bitcoin, you create this type of environment that gets so intertwined with this new currency that even by government decree, if they try to make Bitcoin illegal, for example, it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to be very I don't know what that will look like, but governments have tried that in the past, and they're currently trying that with Bitcoin. And if anything, that has increased the value of Bitcoin, and people are continue to trading in it because they know that the government having a monopoly on money does not help people. If anything, it just helps the government, and people realize that they need to help themselves. And the way they do that is investing in things that they can own, and their lives and their property, and money that they can own. And this is Bitcoin. This is where we're at today.
Well, I think we've seen Bitcoin be used for non-legal means for like a decade now, whether it be buying things on black market or gambling. It's been being used in those ways for years, but hasn't been stopped. So how are you going to ban transactions on Bitcoin now? Is it impossible?
Yeah, and just a digression on the black markets. Being a student of economics, I'm a fan of black markets.
Okay.
But that's only non-violent transactions. For example, they made cigarettes illegal at one point in the United States in some states, and people then became criminals for buying cigarettes or alcohol or marijuana. I don't think this makes you a criminal. It's a non-violent transaction of peaceful people who regard this as something they want to do. And I don't think that there should be another person or group of people to hinder your ability to put whatever type of substance you want in or around your body, for that matter. Now, there's other black markets that are way more non-peaceful, and we don't have to get into that. But that's one thing about Bitcoin, is that it allows for transactions that are not approved by the government to persist. And I think that's something that can be, if you look at the history of the United States, it was kind of founded on these, as actually a professor, a professor of Occidental College. He doesn't teach there anymore, but he was also he's a student of Muay Thai. Thaddeus Russell, in his book Renegade History, is explaining that, dude, this history of the United States was built off prostitutes and alcoholics who said, fuck the British. We're not going to work as much as you tell us to. We're going to dance. We're going to... It was kind of these marginalized groups that have created the beautiful culture of the United States in some aspects, I think. I haven't read the book entirely, but I think that's more or less a general overview of that book. And I think Bitcoin right now being on the fringe and a marginalized group of people are using and transacting it, that's just the beginning. We don't know what this will look like in 5, 10, 100 years. But, dude, I'm so optimistic about it.
I don't think even next year, because back in, September, it was 9,000. And people were like, is this the highest it's ever going to be? Turns out no.
Dude, people are saying it's going to 100,000 by the end of the year.
I can see it.
It's, man, that's beautiful. And I don't think that the government needs to get involved. There's a quote from Janet Yellen in this book, The Bitcoin Standard. She's like, we have no authority of legislation over Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It's out of our jurisdiction. And sure, she's part of the Federal Reserve, and she wouldn't have any jurisdiction. Some people can say, oh, the federal government can, kind of put their hand in Bitcoin and their authority, but fuck them. I don't think that they can try, but at this point, the more it's getting intertwined with companies and communities, I think people will really bottom up take ownership and investment into Bitcoin, and then you have this monetary revolution.
I think they could. I think a big thing that's holding it back, though, is a lot of people I've talked to, they just don't know how to buy it.
Yes, that's what we really need to get out to people, is this information of how to buy it. There's Coinbase. My friend Andrew Howard recommended River Financial, and he said, you can talk to real people on that investment. But I'm using Coinbase, so I'll recommend that. Coinbase.
I think it has the easiest interface to use as just a standard user. Pretty easy to buy, verify your accounts, add your payments. Yeah.
I remember thinking, before I heard about Coinbase was literally back, I heard about it in January. Before that, I was clueless on what's a crypto wallet? How do I get a crypto wallet? That sounds so complex. You need a code or something. This doesn't seem official. It might be illegal. I'm kind of intimidated by it. Am I going into this world of black market drug smuggling things? But no, Coinbase.com, it's legit. It's easy to use. You can buy cryptos just like that. And it's I guess theoretically it could be an investment of your life, of your lifetime, for sure. Yeah.
The big thing about Coinbase, though, is you're buying it, but not holding it in your wallet. You're holding it in your Coinbase account. Your wallet is your personal associated ID with you. So that's why people you hear about forget their passwords to their wallets that have hundreds of Bitcoins in it, and they can't access it. Because those are identified to them. There's no controlling factor over your wallet. It's just you. So if you forget your password or forget your recovery stuff, you're done. You're not getting it back. But that's why it's more secure.
And it needs to be. You need to have personal responsibility in some aspect. If you are a person to forget your password and lose the money in your crypto wallet, then I don't know. Am I going out on a limb to say you don't deserve it? Because then people like this will then be like, we need to nationalize it. And that's when you just get into mucky water. So that can't happen. You need to be smart. You need to be dynamic. You need to know your password. It's that simple.
Have you ever forgotten your password before?
Absolutely.
I do all the time. Yeah. This is one you can't forget.
This is the one that you need to
If
tattoo.
you're going to write it down, this is the one to write it down.
Yeah, take a picture, write it down multiple times. Consider getting it tattooed. Put it in many locations. Don't forget that password. Because that is the wallet, the digital wallet that you would want to hold on to.
Because you can't call Apple to fix this. You can't get an email to reset your password. If you forget it, it's gone. Yeah. That's literally the equivalent of having gold and throwing it overboard in the sea and letting it sink to the bottom. It's in a treasure chest and there's no map to getting it back.
which is, a little bit frightening. But that's just where we're at. I don't know. Maybe someone will have the technology for like password recovery software, but it's like inconceivable at this point, I think, to have that. But anyways, that's man, that's just a part of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. And then you'll see those stories every now and then that people who have 3 password guests remaining on their accounts, which have hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin, until it gets deleted.
So there are like guesses you can have?
From my understanding, yeah, on some of the older accounts.
Okay.
Because there'll be stories that pop up now and then of individuals who have hundreds of millions worth of Bitcoin that have forgotten their passwords and have guessed and have a certain number of guesses remaining to recover the account.
Oh my god. That's frightening.
Would you keep guessing?
I'm not sure. I don't know what I would do. Would you?
Oh, yeah.
And then it goes away?
And it's gone. I think I'd leave one left. Just if it came to me.
You would, if you got to one left, you would try it. You'd be like, this is the one. And then you lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough. Oh, man. So, tell me what the future looks like.
It's hard to say what the future looks like, but we could talk about right now with the mining.
Sure.
Do you know what people use to mine the Bitcoins with?
Not a whole lot. Computer software.
So they use graphics cards for computer graphics cards because graphics cards are designed to make a lot of complex calculations really fast, because that's what you do to output 3D graphics. But if you rig them to, or just tell them by software to guess in the hashing function in the mining to validate the blockchain, they're really good at making high level complex calculations. So if you have a bunch of them at the same time rigged together to make these guesses on the blockchain, you have a higher chance to be the first one to be right out of every single person who's trying to validate the blockchain. And by doing that, you increase your chances to be right and then receive that token reward. So that's how you profit off of mining. But this takes a lot of power by having these computers plugged in, having these parts running. They take a lot of power. And the more you have, the more power you're going to need. And so that's why people pool together their resources. They have mining pools. So like if I had a rig and you had a rig and we pooled our rigs together, we could use both our computing power to validate the blockchain, but at the same time, we'd split the reward. So that's why some people have started doing that. But on top of that, this has created a shortage in the graphics card market. So gamers, people who love to game and have the best graphics, they're shorted because people are buying them all up to mine Bitcoin. So this has created a huge divide in the graphics card market from NVIDIA and AMD. There's just an empty market and the prices have skyrocketed.
Dang. Do you know like a percentage of the price increase?
Last time I checked, there were ones that retailed for about $400 or going for $1,200.
Oh my god.
On resale markets. You can't even get them on normal. You can't go to Best Buy and buy them. They're gone.
Wow.
They sell out in seconds.
Wow. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. What do you think will happen to these graphics cards supply?
Who knows? People have been saying it should be resupplied by now. It could be a year. Who knows? There's just a shortage of materials and a very high demand. So from your theory of economics, that creates a high demand, but there's no supply. Mm-hmm. That's why the price is going up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a 300% increase in the price.
This is just some of the newer ones. Some of the old ones that were going for way cheap are now being skyrocketed in prices because there's just none available.
Dang. Yeah, that's incredible.
So if you're at a school, a college campus that pays for your electricity, and you're able to rig up a little little computer to run your Bitcoin, you can be extremely profitable.
And if your university has free Wi-Fi
Yep.
for the students, that helps.
It's a profitable scheme.
Yeah. It's life-changing, profitable.
Because then you don't have to think about the deductions or the negative income on power and Wi-Fi. You're getting that all for free. You're only profiting.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to plug it in and let it run.
Yeah.
But as more Bitcoin's being mined, it becomes harder and harder to mine. So the complexity of the Bitcoin mining process increases as time goes on, and less becomes available.
Mm-hmm.
So you're required to mine technically harder for less reward. But at the same time, our ability to make something that computes better, like our graphics cards are getting better, our computers are getting better, but it's getting harder and harder to mine for less reward. So there's a balance point in there. What do you think about that, economics wise? Is there an equilibrium point?
Well, I think with Bitcoin, the mining process, the reward is divided by half. Mm-hmm. Each. I don't know what the time frame is.
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the estimation is that by 2140, all the Bitcoin will be mined up. And I'm sure you'll have people mining up until then, I think. But, I mean, it's worth it to people right now to continue to mine. I don't know. Mining's not really my thing. I think for some people, that's an avenue for.
If you've got money to build a rig to mine, it's extremely profitable.
Yeah.
Especially if you're sacrificing some money now for some value in Bitcoin that can increase.
Yeah.
You could sacrifice some loss now for a future increase.
I've seen one room where it was for Bitcoin mining, and I think it was like 20 rigs or computers. I'm not too technologically savvy on what it was I was looking at, but it was a room and it was specifically for mining Bitcoin, and I think it was sold off maybe like a couple years ago, but there was a loss of money during that time frame. But I mean, I guess it's a solid investment for some people.
I saw the other day on OfferUp a Bitcoin mining rig, specifically named a Bitcoin mining rig, going for $10,000.
Wow, that's incredible. Man, well, okay, so one thing that I'm trying to understand is this concept of the value of Bitcoin going up to these, these X times amount of what it's at now, right? For example, if it were to go up to 100,000 or 500,000, what this could look like against the U.S. dollar. And I'm not sure if that would require another increase in the amount of dollars in inflation, but I'm not quite sure what I'm asking here, except would it require, in order for the value of Bitcoin to go up in dollars to 100,000 or 500,000, a crazy $1 trillion amount increase in the US dollar, or just an increase in the value of Bitcoin against the dollar?
It's hard to say, because the value of the dollar decreases, correct, as time goes on?
Well, if there's more of it, then the individual monetary unit will decrease compared to the quantity of it.
Do you think there's a chance that some action is taken by the federal government to increase its value versus the Bitcoin?
No, because I don't think the federal government has any other ability other than to lower the value of the dollar. The only way they were to increase the value of the dollar is if they foregone any increase in additional money printing and allowed technology to be the deflationary force in driving prices lower and on the other side of the coin in increasing the purchasing power and the value of the dollar. So no, I don't think the Federal Reserve will be able to increase the value of the dollar compared to the Bitcoin. And I mean, okay, so Mises, one of my heroes, I think had this quote that value doesn't exist outside of human consciousness, meaning that gold, nothing is inherently valuable. It's only subjectively valuable to individuals. But most people value gold to some degree or another, and they value the dollar to some degree or another because it's acceptable in exchange. So it suits their means as a means of money. But Bitcoin is not even known to people. We're exposed to this because we're in these different worlds that overlap with Bitcoin to some degree or another. But most people aren't even exposed to Bitcoin. And, I think over time you'll have more people being exposed to it. And this is then a philosophical take that I find really interesting, is that over time some money will become obsolete. Potentially gold. Gold, it's archaic. It's mined from the dirt. It's 6,000 years old. It's old. We need, in this new technological revolution, a digital currency to come out. This could be Bitcoin. And this could make gold obsolete. This will make, hopefully, fiat currencies obsolete. However, the people who aren't aware of Bitcoin and these currencies, this could make some people obsolete. And I think in history has shown time and time again that there are people in different societies that become obsolete. And this is just something that I'm grappling with in understanding. We're raised to care for people and everyone, but it's impossible to. We can't care. We don't even know everyone in the history of time and humanity, let alone living today across the world, let alone in the other state, the other city. No clue. Couldn't tell you how many people or who they are.
I don't think we want to make anyone obsolete, but I think there's a thing to say about technological equity. People have access to the ability to even buy Bitcoin. And if we stake this as our currency of the future, yet there's a whole group of people that don't have access to the technology to buy Bitcoin, are they totally left behind? Or are they going to be given the ability to buy the Bitcoin as a new currency standard?
The ability to buy Bitcoin. How does anyone share ability? Especially in technological means.
It's hard to say because technology is expensive.
Yes.
Across the board.
Yeah.
Especially as the more money we put into it, the better technology we come out. MacBooks are now what, $2,000, something like that. Technology is expensive, and there's a lot of people who can't afford that. And if you can't afford technology, can you not even have money? So that's one thing I think that's holding it back.
Sure. If we require our cell phone in order to transact with Bitcoin, if we don't have cell phones, how are we going to use it?
It's hard to say. Like, for example, I was down in Orange County at, do you know Micro Center? The computer parts store?
No.
They have this whole system where you have to scan a QR code to get in line to go in the store.
Okay.
What if you don't have a phone? What are you going to do? How are you going to scan the QR code?
I'm not sure.
Exactly. I think we're assuming now everyone has some sort of smartphone capability. It's sort of become ingrained in our just daily life.
This is true.
But by assuming this is the norm, I think we're leaving some people behind.
Okay. Let me ask you a philosophical question. What's wrong with leaving people behind?
Why should we?
Why shouldn't we?
I don't think it's, as a human race, we should leave anyone behind.
You don't think that humanity is okay. This is okay. Let's pivot the conversation into this philosophical one, because this is what I enjoy. Humanity is built off the great inventions by individuals who have created them.
Mm-hmm.
We stand on the shoulders of great men and women before us. Not all, but some. And there's a saying, further together, faster alone. Or further alone, faster together? I'm not sure.
I don't know the quote.
Oh. But I don't know. I mean, I can say that I'm an individualist. I'm a capitalist. Yet I care for people more than most altruists. And I don't think it's possible for us to bring a human race together on an egalitarian playing field level. If it calls for survival, and technology is required in order to use Bitcoin, why wouldn't I use my phone to buy a pizza with Bitcoin?
Well, you can't.
I can't.
Yeah.
At this moment. I can.
If the pizza man came to the door right now, and you said, "Hey, can I offer you some Bitcoin?" There's a pretty good chance he'd say, "Yeah."
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. So then the next question I would like to ask is, well, how do we get this technology into the hands of other people in order to provide them the opportunity to use Bitcoin and get it? I don't know.
That's a good question. I think if we knew the answer, it'd be easier to give that to people. I think that's really hard financially and personally, because not only do we have to give them the technology, but we have to require an education to use it. Because technology can be intimidating.
Sure.
Especially to people who aren't familiar with it, aren't well versed in it.
Sure.
And it's going to be hard. And then that leads to other things where if they're not educated in it, they could be taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Just like scammers. Imagine Bitcoin scammers.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Definitely.
There's just a lot of factors. A lot of branching paths.
Well,
I think that leads into that sort of the ethics of Bitcoin.
Ethics of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, what are the ethics of Bitcoin from your perspective? Just like, are there ethics of gold? Ethics of
if
dollars?
we accept it to be a currency of our choice, everyone should have access to that currency. It shouldn't be restricted. This
terminology of the word "should" has no meaning to me.
How do I state this? The access to the currency should be unrestricted.
Is it not unrestricted?
You can't restrict someone from having the U.S. dollar right now. Or any sort of currency. I
mean, it's imposed onto people. It's imposed onto countries. They have to exchange dollars for oil. I think it's technically not unrestricted to people to allow it to use. There's just a barrier of technology.
A technological barrier, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I that it's a very, very interesting question to raise. Is, well, how do more people use and get a hold of Bitcoin to use? And honestly, I don't think that it's something that is just. I guess this is something we can agree on, that it's not available to everyone at this moment in time. And maybe optimistically it will be available to more people over time. But I think this is something that exists in a temporal space, that only over time will technology be more widely available to people.
That's true. Just like smartphones in general, or just cellular televisions,
microwaves, ovens,
all of them.
All these technological inventions. Honestly, the latest revolution we've had in human history has been a technological revolution. Mm-hmm. Before what, like 100 years ago, humanity could have no imagination of what it looked like 100 years in the future. And I think that's where we are. We're in this period of time that's still developing in technological means, and it's the best we can do at this exact moment.
I think as time goes on, our technological capabilities are only going to exponentially increase.
I agree.
There's a certain
Absolutely.
law. I can't remember the name right now, but it's about our cumulative computational power is only going to exponentially increase, because as we increase our computational power right now, we use that power to build even stronger computers, and use those stronger computers to build even stronger computers, and it's just an exponential increase.
Yeah, it's glorious.
Mm-hmm. So we can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years. Bitcoin could be everywhere. It could be something entirely different. It's hard to say, but for right now, I'd bet on Bitcoin.
I would too. I want to close with an optimistic closing statement. Mm-hmm. And also, if you can give your closing regards, as well as where people can connect with you and reach out to you, maybe online or wherever. I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, to people out there, if you're going to bet on two cryptocurrencies, it's going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's going to be it. You can contact me at tombutler368@gmail.com.
My concluding point about Bitcoin is that if you don't invest in it at this moment, I recommend you just do a little bit. Mm-hmm. As little bit as you can. A grain of sand on the beach is enough to make it a beach, and you could have your own personal private beach. Mm-hmm.
Don't be the person 10 years from now that wishes, I wish I put $50 into Bitcoin because now it's worth $500,000. Just why not throw a little bit in?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and thank you for tuning in to Geigernomics. This was a pleasure. Thank you all for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Cheers. Peace.